Welcome to the UW demonstration sites featuring Whitman Elementary School and Spokane Public Schools. I'll just start and would like to just share a brief land acknowledgement that um, the University of Washington acknowledges that we exist on the lands and the waters of the first people of Seattle. And there below, you can see some of those actions that we are doing to honor and support that land acknowledgement. And for a little bit of context before we get going with how we are situated is the UW Herring Center, we are contracted by OSPI, and we are members of the Inclusionary Practices Technical Assistance Network, or IPTN. People may have formerly known that as IPP, and now we're the Inclusionary Practice Technical Assistance Network, and we are made up of a collective of other technical assistance and agency providers featured there. And as our part, working with our demonstration sites, we have 21 demonstration sites across Washington State. All are featuring inclusionary practices. And some of our districts specifically are looking at ways and sharing ways that they are reducing restraint and eliminating isolation. And we'll hear more about that today with Spokane Public Schools and Whitman Elementary. I just wanted to share, as we think about all of our demonstration sites, that they're each, as everybody is on their own inclusive journey. Nobody has it figured out yet. We're all kind of moving towards that. But what you'll hear is just those high leverage moves that align to individual school cultures and priority. And then really how sites and districts are increasing their scale and sustainability for those critical lasting impacts. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Savannah and Jody.
Thank you, Rena Marie. My name is Savannah Warrington, and I am a board certified behavior analyst, and I serve Spokane Public Schools as the intervention coordinator. I predominantly work with special education. I am going to be presenting today about the district level practices that we have put into place and some of the progress that we have made to reduce restraint and isolation. And I am here joined by Jody Schmidt, who is the principal of Whitman Elementary School. They are the school that we have chosen as our district's demonstration site. And so she's going to present on her building and the progress and practices that they have implemented to do that work. So to start with, we're going to start with the SPS story to just walk through how we have gone through this journey. Spokane Public Schools has the quote of excellence for everyone through equity. So we are really focused on making sure that we are holding high standards and supporting everyone within our public schools to be successful. We are made up of about 29,000 students with 5,000 staff members. We are the second largest employer in Spokane, Washington, where we are located. There is a variety of different political views here in Eastern Washington, and we have a percentage of about 36% of students of color. We have 56% free and reduced lunch. Our special education rate is at about 18%. Our 504s are 3%. And then our English language learners are about 9.5%. So we have a variety of different needs and supports that are provided throughout our schools. And today we're really going to focus on our journey to reduce restraint and eliminate isolation. So the graph on the screen shows our incident reports of isolation and restraint. And this is really just to give a picture of where we got started. So a lot of our work started following the 2017-2018 school year, where we had over 6,000 incidents of reported isolation and restraint. And those were incident reports. So some of that data is a little bit different based off of reporting requirements and recommendations from OSPI. So some of it is individual restraints. Some of it might be an incident that had actually more than one restraint involved in it. So there is a little bit of variability amongst the data as we look forward. But really, what we needed to do was dig into our practices. So at the time, we had, I believe, the highest or one of the highest rates of isolation and restraint in the state in the 2017-2018 school year. We had a couple incidents that resulted in some injuries and some inappropriate use of isolation and restraint. And we also had a lot of public scrutiny and a lot of published news articles related to the level of isolation and restraint. So that is really where the district leadership and the special education director made the decisions to really focus in on this work of reducing restraint and eliminating isolation. So like I said, there was some incidents. We had two major incidents in the 2018-2019 school year. And again, that got lots of different involvement. So we had staff concerns, parent and community involvement. And really what we were looking at was student safety and emotional health was suffering due to our restraint and isolation practices. And the district was overusing isolation and restraint. We had situations where isolation and restraint maybe was used as a precursor. So as we started to see a behavior chain that typically led to dangerous behaviors, isolation and restraint was implemented early in that chain. And then there were changes that were made at the state level related to that, and that is where we made those progressions. So the district leadership really looked at the data, looked at the community recommendations and the community involvement, and realized that we really needed to do better as a district to support our students. And so we started to look into how can we make changes so that we're able to reduce those numbers. So one of the big things that we did was really focusing heavily on our interagency collaboration. So we worked with the Office of the Superintendent of Public Instruction. We worked with Disability Rights of Washington. There was legislative advocacy that was occurring at that time that resulted in some legislative changes. And we really felt the need to just step out and see where it was that we could make changes and really lead that work through our state to be able to get to a space where our students were not regularly being restrained or isolated. So some of that community and parent advocacy, we created what we called a superintendent's work group on restorative practices. So that started in 2016 and is still in existence. It's in a little bit of a different variation, but we still are focusing around looking at our data and making data-based decisions around our disproportionality. We're looking at exclusionary data, our restraint and isolation data, and making sure that we are continuing to make steps to reduce our levels of isolation and restraint, to reduce our exclusionary practices as well. So that was really a focus where there was some special education work groups that existed within that main work group that really dug into information and met regularly and made recommendations for changes that could happen with that. We also really worked on creating better community relationships. So we worked with a local organization, Every Student Counts Alliance, as well as Disability Rights of Washington, very closely through this process. We brought in those perspectives. We sought out that community engagement in a way that hadn't been occurring previously so that we were able to work together to more holistically support our students. So looking at those first steps, we, again, consulted with OSPI and really worked with them through this process. And so part of that was really looking at investing in trauma-informed de-escalation training. So that was something that was, again, created more at that state level. OSPI put out some recommendations for different organizations that utilized that more trauma-informed practice. We really looked at reviewing the state and federal laws with all of our staff so that everyone was aware of the laws that governed our responses and our actions with our students, making sure that we were providing our policy and procedure related to isolation and restraint to families so that they also were informed about what the district policy and procedures were and what they could expect for their children's. We looked at adding in emergency response protocols at the time to our IEPs so that if we had those students where we knew that there was a likelihood that they would engage in a behavior that may need to have the response of a restraint, that was written into their IEPs so that the staff, the team members, the family members, everybody was really aware of what steps we would be taking in those situations. And then we looked at updating our isolation and restraint reports, and we determined that we needed to give some more clarity with the information that was being provided to families so that they were better informed about what was happening with their students while they were in our schoolhouses. So we really focused on leading our change through professional development. So our initial piece was moving towards that trauma-informed crisis response, which we work with Crisis Prevention Institute, and we have now for the last few years. And we certified a variety of different positions, starting with special education programs, our support specialists, and building administrators. We initially also sent quite a few of our staff through life space crisis intervention, which is a fairly robust 40-hour training looking around the science of behavioral and verbal de-escalation, and then that repair process as well. So looking at that ongoing process with our professional development, we've continued working with CPI, and that is our crisis response training that we utilize. We've increased the number of staff that are certified in that training. We've also looked into bringing in UCARU, which is a restraint-free response. And that one, we're still very much in the planning level. So we have some people who have gone through the training as instructors, and we're really looking and planning about how can we utilize this to support in addition to the other trainings and certifications we're already providing. We also provide training to our staff around program standards for some of our special programs. Those have been newly developed, and so that's been a big focus around our professional development. We've looked at making sure that we are providing training around functional behavior assessments and behavior intervention plans so that we have staff that are looking into the why of behavior so that we're able to be preventative, that we're able to teach those function-based replacement behaviors to help our students be successful. We've focused on specially designed instruction for our special education teachers. So every Monday that our staff teachers meet together once a month, they really focus and dig into SDI and how they are providing that for the students that they're supporting. And then we're also continuing to provide additional training for our paraprofessionals. So we have done some training related to autism and behavioral principles, and we are just continuing to invest in our paraprofessionals because they work with some of our kids that have our highest needs, and they need to continually be developing their skills. We also looked at our staffing and structures and made some adjustments specifically around our elementary behavior intervention programs. So with that, we reduced the ratio of students to staff. So previously we had about 12 to 14 students in an elementary behavior intervention program, and we reduced that down to 8 to 10. We also added in additional paraeducator support to each classroom. We brought in board certified behavior analysts. So that is how I started with the district. I was the first one, and we now have 5 that support across our district in a variety of different ways, supporting students that are in our special education programs, supporting students in our general education settings, and really looking at helping build the capacity of our staff to be able to look towards that why of the behavior and how can we support our students in finding a different, safer way to communicate their needs. We also looked at consulting with outside providers and partnerships. So we've worked with a couple of the different agencies in Spokane to be able to bring in and provide support when our students need additional resources, and really helping again to provide that support to build our capacity to grow our skill set as educators to be able to support students behaviorally. We also removed the designated isolation rooms that we had. And for those rooms that were not able to be removed because they were built in, we removed the doors from those rooms and really looked at repurposing spaces in our classrooms to be a welcoming break space, so that those places that maybe previously had been an isolation room now they don't have that feeling of that sterility anymore. They're more of a welcoming place where students are able to access a calming space to be able to take a break, to be able to sit in a regulated area where maybe the lighting is a little bit dimmer and some of the external stimuli are lower, and those are all open rooms. So there are spaces within some of our classrooms, but they are not closed off separate spaces. As you can see on this slide, we actually partnered with a local bank that provided some things to be able to repurpose those spaces. We also looked at our placement decisions. So we previously had a process that was really making a decision around student placement outside of the IEP team. And so we really needed to adjust that. So what we did there was we really looked at our multi-tiered system of support and how we were training staff to be able to provide a more intensified level of support to students as they worked through that MTSS framework. Really looking at making sure that we had comprehensive evaluations for our students that were accessing our behavior intervention program specifically to make sure that we weren't just looking at behavior, that we were making decisions based off of the whole student and not just one area. We really focused in on IDEA, right? And looking at that placement protocols and how we are continuing to work at this practice versus just a process to get somewhere. So really helping our staff understand the special education is a service and it's not just a placement. And so what are the things that our students need and how can we provide those? And so now what we have is that we have placements that are determined by IEP teams. So again, it took out that decision-making that was outside of that IEP team and put the decision-making back into the IEP team's hands, which is what we need to be doing with IDEA when we're looking at making any placement decisions for our students. So that change really started in the 2018-2019 school year when we got rid of the original model that we were using. And that is an ongoing process, right? We have buildings that have grown immensely and are really looking at making sure that this IEP team is being informed and decisions are being made. And we have buildings that are still working through that and are going through the process of making sure that they have that multi-tiered system of support within their building to be able to support student needs. We also were investigated by the Department of Justice. So in November of 2020, we were notified that the Civil Rights Department of the Department of Justice was going to be investigating our practices. So they looked at data collected from 2017 until 2022, and they determined that we, as a district, had discriminated against students on the basis of disability by denying them access to FAPE, essentially, due to the restraint and isolation. So with that, we entered into a settlement agreement with the Department of Justice. That went into effect in April of 2023, and we are in the middle of that, and that will run through the 2025-2026 school year. So this slide really just shows a lot of the big buckets that the settlement agreement required us to really focus in on. So really looking at making sure that we were not discriminating based off of disability, hiring an intervention coordinator to oversee the implementation of the settlement agreement, making sure that we were developing classroom management plans for our special programs. And that's really looking at those program standards that we developed for those programs. So we took it a little bit beyond what they had asked of us to make sure that we were providing not only behavior management, but also guidance around high leverage practices for our teachers. Prohibiting the use of isolation. So Spokane Public Schools prohibited the use of isolation in April of 2023. We also prohibited the use of restraint unless there was imminent likelihood of serious harm or injury, and that was already in alignment with our current policy at the time. So we had already made that shift with the Washington state laws that had changed and the work that we had done during that time. We also needed to increase our documentation and monitoring processes, making sure that all of our behavior intervention plans are function-based. We had to complete a complaint procedure so that staff, community members could report any complaints that they had around the misuse of restraint and isolation. We looked at increasing reporting for our parents and family members so that they were able to have more information around what it was that was occurring with their students. We also provided compensatory education and counseling based off of students who had been restrained and isolated during the time of the investigation. And then we also had a lot of mandatory staff trainings that the Department of Justice identified that we needed to focus on. So we have worked those into our staff training that we're providing for our staff. And again, we're in this settlement agreement through next school year. We had to make some significant changes to our policies and procedures based off of the settlement agreement. So that the slide goes over that, looking at additional reporting, making sure that our definitions were aligned with the recommendations out of the settlement agreement, making sure that we also included room clear definition. So that was a new piece to our policy and procedure that was added out of the settlement agreement. With those reporting changes, this has been a big lift for our staff. So previously, the restraint report had pretty minimal information around, the incident of restraint or isolation, whether or not there was injury, whether or not there was a staff debrief. And really what these reporting changes looked at was capturing more information around the incident as a whole, and also looking at how we were notifying parents and district staff around restraints. So there's some specific timelines that we have to follow per our settlement agreement that align with Washington state laws around reporting isolation and restraint. And it's really looking at making sure that we are including staff members, parents, and the student in the debrief process following an incident where isolation or restraint is utilized. And also looking at making sure that we have more information around the de-escalation and the overall incident. So making sure that we are documenting what was tried and how the staff were working to de-escalate the student so that we're able to document that that restraint really truly was a last resort and was there to provide safety and around that imminent harm. We also had to include a student wellness check as part of that documentation so that we're able to make sure that the students are doing all right following that, knowing the implications and the things that can happen in a restraint physically as well as psychologically, so that those students feel that they have kind of that repair and that wrap-up piece following that incident. So looking at all of these changes, there was quite a bit of financial impact that occurred to the district to be able to do all of this work. So really what we're looking at here are the increases from that 2017-2018 school year through the 23-24 school year. So we saw an increase in our budget of about 13% with making sure that we had all of the behavior intervention teachers that were needed based off of that reduction of class size. Again, 19% of an increase with our addition of the behavior intervention paraeducators, and looking at overall around a 38% increase to our total special education budget to do this work. And that was through a variety of different funding sources. So some of that is just our special education funds. Some of that is through our local levy. And then quite a bit of that was through the one-time ESSER funds that were received. And really looking at all of it, this is the impact that we've had. So we have been able to significantly reduce our restraints and isolation numbers. So going from over 6,000 in 2017-2018 to the 2023-24 school year of only having 183 incidences. So in 2020-2021, that's when we started to remove those designated isolation rooms and taking those doors off. And then in April of 2023, that is when isolation was prohibited across the district. So I'm really proud of the work that's been done. I've been a part of it for the last few years, and it's been something that's very passionate for me, that our students have the rights to come to school and be supported and not have to experience restraint and isolation. And so I am so proud of the work that's been done at SPS, and it's something that we continue to really focus on and to work through, and just helping everyone to see that there are positive changes and that these numbers are able to be reduced and the isolation is able to be prohibited, and really looking at the progress that we've made over the last few years. Included in the slide deck also is our resources to some of the training developments and things that we talked about, again, with my contact information and the information for our Executive Director of Student Support and Special Education. And with that, I'm going to wrap up with the district level changes and hand it over to Jody so that she can speak about Whitman Elementary School.
All right, my name is Jody Schmidt. I'm the principal at Whitman Elementary in the northeast section of Spokane, Washington, if you're familiar with that area. So Whitman is a title building, so our rates are a little higher than our district average, but you'll see our school in particular. This is my 8th year as the principal here, and we've made some definite shifts in the amount of kids that we have, but right currently about 364 kids. Obviously about 60 staff members. We do have one self-contained program, which is a social pragmatic behavior program. We are a little higher than our district average. We're 86% free and reduced lunch, 14% McKinney-Vento, 21% special education, 3% 504, and then 15% MLL. You can here's our breakdown of staff. Being a Title I school, obviously I have title resources that help support some of our intervention people, but we do have 2.5 intervention teachers, an instructional coach, a full-time support specialist that we call MTSS, and then one counselor, as well as some auxiliary services that you can see here that support some of the work that we do to make sure that we are giving kids what they need to be successful. So I'm just going to kind of talk a little bit about why academically we needed to go in this area. And when I came to Whitman, I inherited a building that was an improvement academically. Most of you are familiar with WSIF data. This was our WSIF data, and it actually only goes back to the 2019 run, but we were below the average for title buildings. You can look at our student with disabilities, our low income. We were in improvement in our intermediate classrooms for almost every single demographic. And so academically, we really needed to make some shifts, which prompted some of the work that we're doing currently. Behaviorally, you'll also see what was happening. So the first year I was principal was the 2016-2017 school year. This is our exclusionary data. We, at that time, had 133 students in the 2017-2018 year that we had suspended from school. Currently, you can kind of see our numbers have declined substantially. There's a couple years, obviously, in there that were COVID years, so that's really great data then. But we were in a place where our students were out of the building so much they could not grow academically. So we knew we had to do some work, and that was actually contributing to our ability for kids not to grow. You can also see these were some of our behavioral incidents that we were having. So we were having close to 1,000 incidents, over 1,000 a year. Our biggest one was verbal and physical aggression. We were tracking that simultaneously. So also those students were maybe not out of the building, but they were out of their classrooms trying to de-escalate. You can see kind of these were our top. It was defiance of a reasonable directive, disrespect of authority, fighting. So we were in a position where we needed to make some shifts to support all kids in our building. Special education was no different. You can see here of our exclusionary, we had over 100. Well, 51 of those students were kids in special education. And then 2018, 2019, it went up. So they were also getting exclusionary discipline, and it was being outside of the school. This was our suspension rate. And you can kind of see that obviously COVID was down. We went up a little bit. We're continuing to go down. We'll talk a little bit about that later, but it was tracking. So we had both general education students and special education students that were not in our building getting good instruction. So we knew we had to make a shift. Our incidents, so in restraint and isolation, so just the context would have been, this was my second year as principal. We had 905 incidences of restraint and isolation. It was actually noted in the spokesman review around that process that we were one of the highest in Spokane. We had 2 behavior rooms at that time, but we did substantially just decrease. And then if you notice, there was only 5 in 2019, 2020. So at that year, I made a decision as a building principal to take out our isolation rooms, period. So at that point, we decided we were not going to use isolation as a form. It was a year prior to when the district actually said we would not be doing that work, and they then made a shift. We did it a year previous, one, because it was becoming the norm in our building, and it was not healthy for staff and our students in moving the trajectory for them. So you can see that we were in a pretty dire situation in terms of the work that was happening with our students who needed the most support. So really where I was at as a leader was we needed to kind of build our foundation up. And so I'm a really big proponent of reading and reflecting and learning, but it was that we could not rise to the level of our goals. We had a lot of goals for our students, but you'll fall to the level of our systems. Our systems were not good. Um, and then I like this quote because it says, your goal is your desired outcome. Your system is a collection of daily habits that will get you there. And this year, spend less time on focusing on habits that precede the results. So we had to get some habits in place and some systems in place to make sure that we were not setting students up to go into programs that required restraint and isolation. So we actually came back and did more of a proactive approach as a whole building around tier one systems and structures to support. So I'll talk through that a little bit for you. I, as a leader, had to really start listening, reading, and finding the answers. So these are just some of the books I used, some of the work I did during the pandemic to even get farther into how do you build a culture of success for all students? How do you look and make your staff understand that we have to have high expectations? And I truly believe when adults feel like they have those systems and they have the support, they will provide those systems and support for students. So I did a lot of reading and reflecting, and some of those you might be aware of, some of them you might not be aware of. But this was just a snapshot of some of the learning I did personally as a leader. So we needed to align our practices here at Whitman and direct the arrows. Basically, our arrows were pretty much going in a lot of different directions. We had a K2 that was maybe doing something. The middle ground was doing something. We had behavior support rooms that were doing something. So I really focused on trust, culture, and expectations, so we could get our arrows headed in the right direction. So creating a culture of success. So these are the three areas I'm going to dig in with you today. First of all, it was our foundation. Are we grounded in a mindset of high expectations? So that was our culture. We had to do some culture building. And then we did data. Are we consistently digging into our data instructionally? So my belief was if we could get our instruction under control a little bit, our behavior for kids would stop, at least decrease, and kids would be in our classroom space to do some learning, and your exclusionary data would not be as significant. And then it was consistency. Are we all consistent in our approach to behavior and academic support? So what is our MTSS model here at Whitman, and how are we going to start that work? So that is kind of where we started. So what would be our motto was the first thing. We had to come together as a community. So we really decided and voted on, we are family, be bold, be courageous, be a wildcat. And we actually kind of looked at where our kids were headed, which is our high school is Rogers High School. They are all about family. So we grounded in that. And then we also decided, you know what? We need kids to dream it, we need to believe it, and we need to achieve it. So last year we really focused on dreaming about where we want to head. This year we're talking about believe it. Do we believe all kids can learn? Do kids believe they can learn? And next year we'll go into how do we achieve that, even though we're doing some great things and achieving results currently. So we dug into our data. What is the real issue about why kids are being restrained and isolated? Why are they out of classrooms so much? Why are they not learning? Is it discipline? Is it reading? Is it math? Or is it writing? So we grounded in some really core data rich dialogues with staff and with my leadership team. So we landed on this. The power of collective teacher efficacy, the collective belief that teachers and their ability to positively impact students. Do we believe as a Whitman community that if we go together, we will positively impact teachers' belief in themselves? And then this single strategy, if we really started grounding in Hattie's work, but it has a 1.3 effect size, which if we're all going in one direction, we should be able to see 2 years of growth in students. So that is why PLCs and achievement teams became part of our story at Whitman, to drive the work so that we could proactively keep kids out of spaces that perpetuate their ability to be further from educational advancement and the opportunity gap. So we created consistent approaches by using human capital in different ways. So like I showed you, I have title staff that I use in very different ways than a lot of people. But I also look at the strengths of my staff to be able to do that. So first of all, it was, what is our belief about systems and structures? I believe that systems and structures help drive the work. It's the first foundational thing that you do to help get a handle on those small habits so we can increase success. How do we design schedules that impact students' access to core instruction and provide quality targeted intervention? So I also was like, okay, let's look at our schedule. What do we do so all kids get high impact core instruction? And then how will we be the most strategic with collaboration between all stakeholders? So what do we do as a system here to make sure we all collaborate and know where kids are headed behaviorally and academically? And then really, how do we design instruction and self-support that has high leverage effects? So that's, I look at all my staff and say, okay, who am I using in this capacity to drive the work forward? So this is our journey. And so you can kind of see kind of where we are. Currently, we're integrating behavior and academic supports together. But what does it look like academically? These are the structures that we highlight here. Just reimagining inclusion using scheduling, align common planning using an instructional coach support. If you have that, otherwise I have other ways we do that, and align instruction using workshop model. Collaboration, we develop a robust MTSS framework. We use data to create strategic interventions, and we use an achievement team model, which is our PLC model. We just call it achievement team here. And then finally, aligning practices with high leverage moves. We dig into research and strategies that have high yield effect size. We only use those strategies, and then we align those as a whole building. Our journey behaviorally is no different. We have the same sorts of structures. Our systems and structures are in reimagine inclusion using scheduling. So making sure our scheduling aligns, that kids are getting the self-support they need. We do a soft landing here, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. That creates a sense of belonging. We use a buddy room system here as a common structure that creates consistency for all of our students. When we collaborate, we have a student support team using protocols and data as part of MTSS. We create achievement teams using data, always, which is our PLC model. So it's always grounded in data, even if we're talking about behavior. And then we align our practices with high leverage strategies. So we dig into research and strategies that have high yield effect size, which is Hattie's work. And we develop a cycle of professional development with monthly focuses. So right now, we're in the course of every month, we dig very deeply into some high leverage strategy that impacts the work that's happening in classrooms. All right. So if you've not done any work with Hattie at all, this quote to me is really the epitome of that work. Is you need to create your climate first, then learning comes second, and achievement comes third. So climate starts with expectations for both staff and students. We tend to get what we expect. That's a high expectations for all. When we expect greatness, we're likely to achieve it. So that was just some work that we did as a building, in that we expect a lot of ourselves and our students. And so as a leader, they expect a lot of me to create that. We don't settle for mediocrity, and we are specifically effective in realizing our low levels of learning. So we need to call that out and then make adjustments. You'll see here our social emotional strategies and our academic strategies, the effect sizes behind them. Anytime we do something that we're going to do building wide, we look at the effect size and if it is worth our time to put in that structure. And so if you know Hattie's work, it's anything above 0.44 will get you impact. Anything higher, like in 0.64 or 1.0, that will accelerate learning. So some of the things that we do are there to accelerate our learning for kids. So I'm going to talk about our 3 inclusionary practices we're using currently that are getting the biggest impact for our kids. And the first one I kind of talked about is soft landing. It's really a culture of high expectations using strategies that impact that sense of belonging. We call it 4 in 1 morning. So in the morning, you'll see kids slow roll into our building. So they will come, they eat from 8 to 8:20. At 8:20, the building is open for kids to access. So we don't line up at Whitman. We do the soft landing. Kids slow roll into their classrooms. The expectation is that they get a warm greeting. They always do some sort of mood meter. How are you feeling as you come into our space today? We do a neutralizing activity. So it's not academic based. It would be like some do start with art, some do tubs of games, but kids know when they come in, they have a little time to get into our learning space versus we're going to start with an entry task. And then there's a morning message, and then there's a mindful minute or a peaceful pause. So I create a mindful minute, which is me doing a short video where we do breathing, or the teacher does that. And that's how in our spaces, all of our kids enter our space in this way. It's called soft landing. So that's the first thing that you would see that impacts our ability to keep our kids grounded so that then we can connect with them throughout that time frame. The second thing that you would see is, I believe, solely in workshop model here. That is one of our district initiatives around how we engage kids in the learning, but it also accelerates learning or impact growth. So within that model, we use small group using collaboration and strategic intervention. We do learning intentions and success criteria, which are also a high leverage impact move. We do intentional instructional strategies with teacher clarity and purpose. And we do reflection on learning, feedback, and celebration. So right now in our workshop model, you would see, if you were in there for an entire piece, these are what teachers are working on to make sure that we are impacting the growth of children, both academically and behaviorally. Kids like small group and they like attaching to an adult. So the small group piece of that allows the behavioral intervention to take place in an organic way. Our third inclusionary practice is really our buddy room system, which creates a collaborative culture for us. And it also creates a sense of belonging with connection. So all of our classrooms are connected. So a younger or a primary classroom will be connected with an intermediate classroom. And those classrooms do a lot of work together. So one thing they do is maker space to practice soft skills. We do a focused assembly where they do some sort of activity together to learn perseverance. It's all attached to the Character Strong curriculum. So like this last month we did, it's cooperation this month. So they did an activity together to cooperate and do they actually made bird feeders right together. So that was the makerspace this month. We connect to provide learning opportunities. So sometimes a student might need a break. That would be the space they would take a break. Before having me as the administrator have to do any of that work, they would go to another adult who knows them. It promotes use of strategies to regulate emotions. So they would go there for a break. They might go there even if they're struggling. And then it creates a sense of family with that other group. So in the cafeteria, they all eat with their buddy room, and they create that work and that space to be able to be effective and create just a sense of community. So that's the third practice you would see in our building around inclusion. So the other piece of that and why that's important is with those common systems, there's a tiered approach. So if we are going to pick a strategy, it will be for tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. So for example, let's just talk workshop model, but you can kind of see, but workshop models for all. All kids have access to that and all have access to core instruction. We do have workshop model as a tier 2 targeted support by teacher. So the teacher pulls small group in the workshop model format. And so some kids get double touches. And then tier 3 is workshop model. And you might have intervention teachers come in and support and or a coaching model. But every single thing that we do is tiered in their approach. Same with PLCs, same with common assessments. We tier all of our strategies that we use. And we call it a layer tiered system here. You can see the same thing. Here's some more around behavior. If I'm going to do a focused assembly, that's for all, right? Soft landing, check in, check out, that's for some. Soft landing for attendance, that might be a tier 3, and that's a goal for them. Buddy rooms, same thing. Buddy rooms, break space, positive, and refocused is a tier 2. But tier 3, it could be part of an actual tier 3, a tier plan that has incentives. So anytime we pick a strategy that's building wide, we want to make sure we can use it for all tiers versus it be a standalone. So now you can kind of see, I'm just going to say where we are now based on using some of these strategies. We started with 905 restraint and isolations. We went down, and obviously now we're at 4. I think just the impact of taking that room out of our building, my philosophy is we use every single thing that we can do to de-escalate a child before we put hands on. It is not safe and or the best practice for kids to have hands-on. So we still do that. In our district, we do not use isolation. That's just something that we don't do. And so that also stops that. But the isolation room requires you to actually verbally use your skills to de-escalate children. So that's where we are currently. Academic or discipline wise, you can see it's a little bit different, but our verbal or physical aggression right now is at 12. It's probably a behavior that causes adverse. That's probably also together with that, but it's quite a bit of a decrease over the 1,000 that we have. Do we still have behavior here? Absolutely. But our ability to use some of our structures effectively have decreased that discipline. And our discipline, we don't have near the amount of exclusionary discipline because of the structures we have in place to support. So where are we now academically? So we were in improvement for 6 years as a building. We're currently out of improvement. You can see right now, this is my 2024 data. All of our students were way above the line. The line in WISIP data is 1.9 for title schools. If you fall below that line, you're in improvement. So we are above the line in every category. There's a few categories we just don't have those learners in our spaces currently based on some demographic shifts. We went down a little last year in ELD and in special ed, a couple different reasons. ELD, we have a little different model. It is a pull-out model. Everything else is a push-in model here. But there were just some shifts in different types of languages. And so with different types of languages come different strategies that we're going to need to use. But we are out, and so no longer are we going to be having to work through that process with staff. So that's a huge celebration. And then over time, I know being a school that's a title building, it's super challenging always to talk about passing the state testing or not. But you can see over time, this is the growth of our students. We're consistently growing. Last year, we did have an implementation of a new language arts curriculum. So it was an implementation dip. I see that coming back up. But our growth is growing students over time. So the more I think we are aligning our practices, the more we can see that growth. And like I said, we were at 30% when I came as the principal, and my team has made a lot of progress in that area. So for us, our continuous improvement really is always looking at our special ed students and our students of two or more races, making sure that we are doing the right interventions to support them. One thing that we are really concerned about is just writing, our students' writing and literacy. And are we doing the right things to get them to be writers? Attendance is always an issue. How are we engaging kids and families in the work to make sure if you're here, you grow at Whitman. If you're not here, you miss out. So making sure that we're working through that. And then we are really pushing for really tight core instruction that impacts engagement. So it's proactive strategies early on that allow our students then not to be identified for special education, not to be impacted and having to go into self-contained programs, but we can put in the systems early with our systems and structures to change the trajectory early on for kids. And so I think you can kind of see where we're headed. And then I know Savannah might want to see next steps for SPS, but I know for us, our next steps are just growth data increase and discipline data decrease always. A downward trend continued, but really for us, it's around learning labs and intentional strategies to close gaps. So learning labs as in our building that we go and watch each other teach. And then we do have a social pragmatic program, and we're getting more and more kids who are neurodiverse. So we know that we're going to need to work through that as a staff and tie our inclusion experiences for our program. So how are we getting kids mainstream quicker and more effectively? So, and then I'm sure that Savannah wants to talk really around what is SPS's growth steps as well.
Yeah, thank you, Jody. So looking at our growth steps as a district, right, continuing the work that we're doing, continuing the staff training and providing that ever needed opportunity to grow our skill set and develop different ways and dig into different high leverage practices. So that is something that we're always focused on continuing. And then really looking at, as we have dug into our restraint data over the last year and this current year, is really looking and identifying where those restraints are occurring. And part of that is occurring within our behavior intervention programs. And so while our numbers are still definitely significantly lower, and we're very proud of that, we still have work to do. So part of that is what we are in the midst of doing right now, which is a behavioral health work group. So we're really working and teaming as a staff with staff members from diverse positions within the district. And then we'll be working also to bring in student and community voice into that to really re-envision what our behavior interventions look like within Spokane Public Schools. So what is our continuum of intervention, and how do we support those students that have very high needs and come with some pretty extreme behaviors? And we have some pretty limited resources in the Spokane area. So how are we as a school district able to partner with community members and community resources so that we're able to holistically support and help these students? And also understand and know where our own range is for the capacity and the growth and the support that we have, right? So where do we need to build it up? And then where do we need to bring in and look at community supports with that? Also looking at our MTSS framework, so really focusing around that at the district level as well as the building level. So what types of structures and systems can we look at making sure are in place so that we're able to support our students academically and behaviorally, and really looking at a lot of the work that Jody has done at Whitman, and how can we even help support the expansion of that within our own district, right? As Rena Marie said at the beginning, everybody is on their own journey. And we as a district have our journey, and each one of our buildings, they have their own journey. So how can we support and highlight the work that is being done and successful, and help maybe some of the areas of growth for some of our other buildings? So really just looking at that MTSS framework and really looking at that whole child support so that we are able to support our students with their varying needs that we have here within Spokane Public Schools.
Great. Well, a huge thank you to Jody and Savannah for sharing the journey of Spokane Public School and Whitman Elementary School. A lot that was resonating for me was that looking at that district scale, those important early leadership moves, and really aligning everything and using that data to inform decisions on what's best for students and educators, and those engaging in those continuous cycles of inquiry here, and that data and those graphs tell a very powerful story. And I know so much is wrapped up into that with all this work and this concentrated effort as you continue to also refine your MTSS systems and structures. We invite everybody on the next slide. You'll see a QR code, a link to Whitman Elementary School and Spokane Public Schools demo site webpage, and they've been so generous to share a lot of these artifacts to help provide guidance to others as you think about what's your first step or your next right step here. Please dig into some of these artifacts, and you can also request and come and visit Whitman Elementary in Spokane. And then on the last slide here, you can find some more school recordings and artifacts and other resources from across our demonstration sites. Thank you so much.